In the Bible, the ofanim are one of the most mysterious characters to appear. With more than 100 mentions throughout the Old Testament, these angels play a crucial role in many stories, especially the adventures of Abraham and Jacob. But who really are these enigmatic beings? What exactly are the ofanim? The word ofanim in ancient Hebrew simply means wheels. Interestingly, these wheels are mentioned several times in ancient scriptures and can be associated either with the wheels of an ordinary cart or with something more heavenly. And did you know that one of the prophets had a vision of these beings during the time of Nebuchadnezzar's conquest, around 597 BC? That prophet was Ezekiel. Ezekiel was not in his homeland when he received this powerful vision. In fact, he was among the exiles on the banks of the river Chebar in Babylon. It was at this time and place that God decided to reveal himself to him, marking the beginning of his calling as a prophet. Ezekiel described this experience as something out of the ordinary, where the heavens opened before his eyes. Ezekiel's description of this vision is truly fascinating and challenging. He describes something that resembles a storm coming from the north with lightning and fire, and in the center of it something shiny like metal. Ezekiel does his best to express the inexpressible, using similes to give us an idea of what he witnessed. Within the cloud, luminous entities lurk, each radiating a brilliant light. Despite appearing human at first glance, these beings are far from being human. With their 4 distinct faces, a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle, they intrigue the prophet Ezekiel. At the beginning of his vision, Ezekiel does not record the names of these creatures, but later, in chapter 10, they are identified as cherubim. The wheels he saw were like those of a car, but with one peculiarity: they could move in any direction without turning. It is as if he is describing something beyond human understanding. The wheels, alongside the living creatures, had an appearance similar to barrel, and they all had a complex structure, as if they were wheels within wheels. They followed living creatures wherever they went, demonstrating a deep connection between them. Ezekiel explained this constant interaction between the wheels and the cherubim, emphasizing the manifestation of God's Spirit in each movement. He saw a representation of God's omniscience, symbolized by the multiple eyes on the wheels and cherubim. This vision marked the beginning of Ezekiel's calling as a prophet, with God calling him to be his spokesman and watchman for the Hebrew exiles. This is just the first in a series of visions that Ezekiel had, all described in vivid detail and striking analogies. Everything in this image, from the living creatures to God's throne, seems to be in constant motion, a stunning illustration of divine providence, which is always at work, intricately designed, and never errant. Ezekiel offers us a vision that defies human understanding, a vision of divine magnificence in motion, where every detail is carefully orchestrated to fulfill divine purpose. It is an image of beauty, power, and intelligence beyond our earthly understanding. The throne of God is in motion, mounted on wheels, known as ofanim. 4 angels push this throne, which moves in all directions thanks to wheels within wheels, creating an effect that allows the throne to move without the need to turn. This phenomenon has intrigued many and was later labeled as a class of angels, the ofanim, by Jewish apocalyptic writers. Although there is no direct mention of the ofanim as angelic beings in Scripture, later Jewish writers included them in their hierarchy of angels, alongside seraphim and cherubim, due to their uniqueness, supernatural power, and proximity to the throne of God. The important thing is not whether they are angels or just a divinely driven mechanism of multidimensional transportation, but rather their function in displaying the glory of God to Ezekiel and to all believers. The ofanim reveal much about God, both in his appearance and in his function. Ezekiel witnessed God's complete domination over the cosmos, with the ofanim and the eyes that cover them symbolizing divine omniscience. These unusual visions gave Ezekiel and the readers a renewed vision of God's greatness. Furthermore, there is the case of Job, an upright and fair man who faced countless trials. Even in the face of tragedies that took his wealth, family, and health, Job remained faithful to God, resisting his wife's temptations to curse God and give up. Even when faced with difficult questions about God's justice, Job remained steadfast in his faith. God finally responds to Job in the midst of a storm, reminding him of his sovereignty and power over all creation. God's response to Job is a powerful reminder that he is the creator of the universe and that his understanding of it is infinitely superior to that of human beings. These stories show us that, even in the face of the greatest adversities and questions, God is in control and his wisdom transcends our understanding. It is a reminder that we must trust God even in the most difficult times, as he is sovereign and just in all his actions. Job, feeling small before God, is confronted with the grandeur of his creatures. God, in describing the Bimot, reveals the magnitude and wonder of an extraordinary creature. This colossal being, described as devouring grasses and possessing incomparable strength, shows the supremacy of the Creator over all things. The Bimot, the subject of debate and speculation, is presented as proof of God's greatness. His detailed description highlights his grandeur and uniqueness, making it clear that Job cannot compete with divine creation. Whether the Bimot is a hippopotamus or an elephant doesn't matter. The essential thing is to understand that all things were made by God, and He is superior to everything He created. In addition to the Bimot, God encourages Job to contemplate Leviathan, a terrifying creature that symbolizes the incomprehensible strength and greatness of the Creator. Faced with these wonders of creation, man finds himself humbly before God, without the right to question His work. Thus, Job and all of us are reminded of God's sovereignty and majesty. He is worthy of our reverence, admiration, and worship, for His creation reflects His incomparable glory and power. Leviathan is a colossal sea creature, described in the Bible as a fearsome beast, endowed with great power and monstrous ferocity. The Hebrew word for Leviathan means twisted or coiled, and several biblical passages make mention of this creature, real or legendary, that inhabited the sea. Psalm 104 praises God as the one who created the habitat for Leviathan, highlighting its greatness and vastness. The creation of this marine giant serves as a lesson in humility, teaching men, like Job, the importance of recognizing their smallness in the face of the grandeur of divine creation. In Job 41, God describes Leviathan in detail, emphasizing his grandeur and fierce indomitability. This chapter portrays Leviathan as a real and formidable creature, capable of resisting human efforts to dominate him. The mention of Leviathan in Scripture, both as a threat to be feared and as an example of the grandeur of God's creation, raises diverse interpretations. Some see Leviathan as a legendary sea monster, while others suggest it could be a real creature, like an ancient dinosaur or a mighty crocodile. Regardless of interpretation, Leviathan's presence in the Bible serves as a reminder of God's sovereignty and unparalleled power over all creation. In the biblical context, the term Leviathan evokes the image of a formidable creature and intrigues in other passages of Scripture. In Psalm 89, we also find references to a serpent connected to the sea, defeated by God as proof of His immense strength. This serpent is called Rab, which means proud. The text highlights God's sovereign power over the sea and all adverse forces. The description of Leviathan reveals its grandeur and the impossibility of being dominated by humanity. It is an imposing creature, with armor-like skin and terrifying teeth. Some interpret this description as that of a mighty crocodile, but the legendary nature of Leviathan transcends any mundane explanation. Leviathan is described as emitting light and fire from his mouth, his eyes shine like the dawn, and his breath sends out smoke and flames. Its neck is powerful and its folds are firm as millstones. Nothing can prevail against him, not even the most powerful weapons of men. He is so formidable that even the clanking of the spear is insignificant to him. This vivid description of Leviathan leads us to reflect on God's sovereignty and power over all creatures. He is the supreme master over Leviathan and all forces of nature. This passage reminds us of God's incomparable greatness and His ability to subdue even the most fearsome creatures. Next, we are introduced to the Nephilim, beings whose origins are different from those of humans. They were created at different times and for different reasons. Scripture indicates that a portion of Satan's fallen angels did not maintain proper dominance when interacting with humans in ways that angels should never do. The story of Genesis recounts the marriage between these spiritual beings and the daughters of men, resulting in the creation of powerful and famous individuals. These Nephilim represented a threat to humanity, and their presence was one of the main reasons for the Great Flood in Noah's time. After the flood, there is still mention of Nephilim, suggesting that the fallen angels continued to commit their sins. However, the Israelites destroyed these giants during their invasion of Canaan, showing God's final victory over these creatures. In short, both Leviathan and the Nephilim highlight God's sovereignty over all creatures and the need for humility in the face of His incomparable power.